In today's video, I'm going to answer a question that humanity has been asking for about as long as we've been around. In fact, it's the same question that Desmond the Moon Bear posed all those years ago in ASDF Movie 2.
How did I get here?
How did we get here indeed, Desmond? The exact nature and timing of the creation of the Earth and all the things on it has been a pretty contentious topic for a very long time. Religious leaders have combed through every single biblical and apocryphal text they could get their hands on to make their best estimates. The most famous of which was made by James Ussher in 1650. The Irish archbishop posited that all of history began somewhere on or around Tuesday, October 25th, 4004 BC, which would make the Earth about 6,000 years old in the year of our Lord 2025. By the way, isn't it kind of fucked up that they had just like Tuesdays back then? I mean, I know the days of the week are made up and it's all just like a human construct that we invented much later. Maybe, I don't know. But it does make me smile a little bit to think that maybe somewhere way back in ancient Egypt, Garfield's ancestors also hated Mondays. But anyway, while many people continue to observe this estimate to this day, others began to use advances in geology and astronomy to estimate that the Earth is actually much, much older. As of recording, the Earth is an estimated 4.6 billion years old. Not only did science come into conflict with the church's estimated date of creation, but the work of Charles Darwin and advances in the field of genetics called into question their theory on the origin of species as well. In the US specifically, it's been a pretty hot button topic for the last 100 years. In that time, many people have attempted to stop people from teaching this theory in schools. In fact, the first state to ban the teaching of the theory of evolution was Tennessee when they passed the Butler Act on March 13th, 1925. A first-year school teacher named John T. Scopes offered to willfully violate the Butler Act in order to challenge the law in court, with support from the American Civil Liberties Union. Even though the 6,000-year-old estimate and the opposition to the theory of evolution are both based on a very literal interpretation of the book of Genesis, when the lead prosecutor took the stand, he did eventually concede that some biblical passages should be understood illustratively rather than literally. Even still, Scopes was found guilty after a deliberation lasting less than 10 minutes. Awesome. Really good job at finding an unbiased jury out there in Tennessee, guys. But even though the case was lost, it seems like people across the country thought that the defense made some pretty good points, because in the wake of this trial, over 20 anti-evolution bills were proposed in state senates and struck down. That didn't stop people from proposing them though. They just kept them coming. In fact, just last year, the West Virginia State Legislature attempted to introduce a bill that would allow public school teachers to teach intelligent design as a theory of how the universe and or humanity came to exist. And while a 2017 Gallup poll shows that the belief that God created man in its current form has fallen to an all-time low, that poll still shows us that 38% of US adults still hold fast to that belief. Growing up in Texas, I had a lot of experiences with people like this. People who were disgruntled at the fact that we were being forced to take tests on the subject of evolution. I've seen people pull their kids out of school and homeschool them so that they aren't exposed to the idea. And I mean, the debate gets pretty intense sometimes. You've been out there. You know how crazy it gets. I feel like a lot of this tension comes from the almost inherent mutual exclusivity of these two theories. One or the other has to be right, and it's all a matter of whether you value your faith or science more. Right? Not so fast. This is where Minecraft comes in. Now, I want to be clear, I'm something of a scientist myself, who happens to believe that there is an overwhelming amount of evidence to support the theory of evolution and the 4.6 billion year old Earth. So before we continue, I just want to make sure that that's out there. But I'm also a Christian who believes that God created the world around us and everything else that we see in the universe today. How did I reconcile those two positions? Well, I became a gamer. No, I'm just kidding. Apparently this kind of thinking isn't new. It's just that I've found a new metaphor, I think, to explain it, so here goes nothing. Picture the game Minecraft for a minute. If you tell me you don't know what that is, I'll tell you that you're a liar, because Jack Black is starring in a movie about the game, set to come out in about 3 days.
Flint and steel.
If Warner Brothers is producing a movie about it, it's about as mainstream as it gets. So picture your Minecraft world for a minute. Do you hear the gentle C418 soundtrack? Do you see the sheep eating the grass? Do you feel the fear in your soul as you run through a dark forest with zombies and skeletons all around you? Now imagine you live there full time, unaware of the outside world or how the game works. Like most human civilizations, you and your fellow players probably develop some sort of creation story based on natural phenomena on the world around you. Say you even stumble upon the Temple of Notch, or maybe you don't even get that far. Maybe you just imagine there is this guy who made this place. Others of you could probably also work out some sort of idea of how what we know on the outside is the game code works. Determining how sheep wool color is passed down, or the likelihood of any item or mob spawning based on observation and experimentation. One side might argue that this Notch character created everything in the world around you, each sheep, player, and item alike. The others might argue that they can point to evidence that these things were not just created out of thin air, that there seems to be rules that dictate their presence in the world and how the world is/was generated. Perfect. Now pull yourself out a little bit and think about what you know about this world as an outside observer. We know that Marcus Notch Person, along with the team at Mojang, and I suppose now Microsoft, have built this world by developing lines and lines and lines of code to determine how this game should operate. Point one for Notch creationists, he does deserve credit for creating the world they live in and all of the mobs that inhabit it. But we also know that Notch is not sitting there sketching and designing and programming every single creature and every single object in that world from scratch right before it enters the game, right? The game has rules that it sticks to, for the most part, in regards to biome generation and mob spawning without any active intervention from its creators. But that's the thing, the development team wrote those rules that the game uses to operate in the first place. At that point, it's not so important to say whether these things were created by the developers or whether they materialized in a system that the developers designed. Both of those instances are essentially the same. Either way, the world is the way that it is because the creators decided it so. But this analogy doesn't just extend to how things came to be. You can use it to take a look at how things will work in the present and predict how they will occur in the future. See, just like the laws of physics and the rules of inheritance can help us understand how we got here today, we can also observe them in our world around us. The same forces that pulled the earth together out of dust are still the forces that keep our feet on the ground. And the same mechanisms of natural selection that brought about every species in existence are still at work in every ecosystem in the world. It's the same way in Minecraft. As you move through the world and new chunks spawn in, they follow the same rules of world generation that the chunks that you already inhabit did when they formed. And when new mobs spawn or when certain things grow, you can reasonably predict how and why those things might happen. Sure, a lot of numbers and reasonings and likelihoods of things happening are plainly spelled out for us on the Minecraft wiki, but theoretically, you could go in and determine these rates for yourself through a lot of observation and careful experimentation. In fact, a lot of players already do this whenever developers for the game don't explicitly explain how something works or why the reasoning is for something that happens in game. So look guys, it doesn't have to be one or the other. If you follow the Christian God, you don't have to get defensive and say, I know that God made this world, and any attempt to explain how is heresy. It doesn't have to be like that. In fact, I'd say uncovering more about the way the world that God designed works is a great way to connect with him if that's something that's important to you. And for those of you who would write off all religion as foolish, I would say it's just as foolish to turn your nose up at all religion, because no matter how granular our understanding of the beginning of the universe, if there even is one, gets, we will probably never know for sure what came before. Maybe nothing had to, or maybe any number of us are right. Maybe Ted Danzen's there in the afterlife, calculating up our points at the end of it all. Or maybe some unreached people in the Amazon hit it right on the head. The point is, it's good to stay curious in all things. That's how we do better while we're here on this earth. So if you need to talk about something like this, I'll be here. But until next time, I'll see you around.